Okay. This is a continuation of the first four verses of Genesis that we've done. I have handed out sheets with the translation, the Hebrew and English of the sheets of what we've done. Not all the pages of commentary, because that would be another 100 pages, but just the verse itself. And so I'm going to read the verse, and if anyone wants, they can always look at the other YouTubes, or you can always email me and I'll send you a copy of the written sheets. Vayikra, Genesis 1:5. Vayikra Elokim la'or yom, and God called the light day, v'lachoshech, and to the darkness, kara layla, he called night. Vayera v'yavayka yom echad, and it was evening and morning one day, or day one. The way we are translating it, as we will explain through today and next week and maybe the week after, the way we are going to translate it is Vayikra is not its call, but it's drawn forth by Elokim, a power of boundaries, which will explain why the name Elokim is translated, means power of boundaries. We did that in the first class. So normally people will call it God, but it's not a Hebrew word, God. Each word in Hebrew has different meanings, and the same term used in different places has different meanings as well, or different applications. So it's a power of boundaries. La'or, which we translate instead of light, we translate it pure clarity. Yom, which is normally translated as day, we translate it as illumination. Lacheshach, which we call darkness, we translate as a thick haze. Kara, calling, means associated. Laila, which is translated as night, we translate as dullness. Vayihi, and it was, and we translate thus is the power of. Evening, we translate as gloom. And it was, thus is the power of Boker, which is morning, we translate as glow. And Yom Echad, illuminating one. That we will also explain different meanings to these words as we explain the words. That each word has different meanings in Hebrew. So verse 4, which was the previous verse, mentions the fact that Or, light, which we translate as clarity, is ready and fit for further creation. The word which is good, we translate it as hetivo, meaning it's fit and ready. Yes.
What page are you on?
Page 7. 7 and 8 is what I read. But the explanations are not all on the sheet, just this verse with the translation, 7 and 8. Now, the fact that the light is good means that the darkness is not so good. The fact that which we translate as clarity, and that the clarity is ready for creation, means that the choshech, the thick haze, hasn't reached the state of readiness to continue in the creation process. It was created, a thick haze, but it has nowhere to go yet. Clarity is clarity that everything is what the Creator wants. Reading the verse continues that we'll see another element is needed besides Or and Choshech to bring a balance. Because now that we have clarity, we still don't know what to do with the Choshech, the thick haze. That element that we add in this verse, in verse 5, will enable the Choshech and the Or, the thick haze and the light, to work together. And so Yom and Laila are brought forth. Day and night, or the way we'll translate it, is dullness and illumination. They're brought forth. And when these terms are brought forth, every word is a definition, defines something. So these new definitions create a new mixture in creation, and it's another expression of the oneness in the creation. Previously, In the previous verse, Or Choshech existed within the same space and the same thought. The whole first chapter, we're not translating in the physical sense that it's normally taught and translated. We're translating it according to what the first word means, which is wisdom or thought. When you translate as beginning, which is normally translated, it has one meaning, but the word doesn't actually mean beginning, it means wisdom or thought. So everything that's happening in the first chapter is happening inside the thought of the Creator. And because it's happening within thought, it's all in the same place. So they exist in one place, and there's no movement to implement further creation other than it being in the thought. So additional components are needed to bring the thought forth. So you have in your thought, in your mind, you have different levels in your thought. You have a thought which is like a light goes off, you got the idea, but you don't have details to it. And then you process it, and you have more details. And as you continue processing in your mind, more combinations and more perspectives come into focus. So this is also the way the creation is happening in the Creator's mind. Different details are coming into focus. And each one stimulates further development. And in this verse, what stimulates it are the two words, which is Yom and Laila. As these are all components of the process, all of these expressions exist in all levels of creation. So it's not just they exist in the thought process of the Creator, it exists in the thought process of the human mind, it exists in the process of creating animals, daily creation. Daily we have all these things going on. It's not that creation happened at one time, but it's happening every moment in our life. And that's why the Hebrew words are not limited to one translation or one meaning. If you just put in one meaning, it's a cold word. It doesn't have the feeling of what really is behind it. Behind it is a constant energy of creation that's constant. It's always happening, the same thing. So when you translate it as something that once happened, it becomes irrelevant, and it's not a living Torah. It's not God speaking to us. Something once happened, it happened. It's not here. It has to be a constant process, which is what it is. So the various interpretations of the verse and sentence are dependent on the point of impact that these words have in creation. In other words, when you hear people, you read books of explanation of the Torah, you read all different perspectives, it's because if you stop for a moment, you'll see that the people explaining it have probably experienced the way they're explaining it. They've lived through it. They're seeing the words based on their experience, based on their knowledge. Someone else has a different experience and will look at the same story, the same words, and explain it in a different way. So all these words depend where you are in creation, where it comes to you. And that which for one person will be Yom, will be illuminating, will be day. For another person might be light, it might be darkness. Or for one person is dark, maybe light for another person. We're all in different spaces. And even ourselves, one moment we may be clear, another moment we're in a haze. And we don't know what happened. We look for things to blame, but it doesn't matter what you blame, that's our situation. It happens, we're up and down all the time, that is life. So, in verse 5, a new direction is formed. It incorporates new details that are being released within the infinite levels of the mind of the Creator. And it's all generated by thought. And at this point, there's no difference between thought and action. Thought is action. So when the Creator thinks it, it actually happens, which is why there's a whole discussion. Was there an evolution process here in creation, or did it just happen in one instant? It happened in one instant. But for description to happen, description is an evolvement. Because we cannot describe everything in one breath. And that's the idea which is also mentioned, that when the 10 matters, the two tablets were given to the Jewish people on Mount Sinai, and God said, or Hashem said, the 10 sayings or 10 matters, which we know there's no 10 commandments in Torah anywhere. It doesn't say commandments. It says Aseret HaDibros, which is matters or words or sayings. That it says there that when the Creator spoke everything in the same moment. And so people didn't know what was happening. They couldn't comprehend it. And that's not physical for a physical person, possible for a physical person to do. So in a certain sense, everything happened within the same moment of the thought of the Creator, but it takes time for things to gradually come out. In the physical or spiritual, there's a process of evolution, and it takes time. So even the same thing, you may imagine a building or a garden or something, and you have all the details in your mind, but it takes time to write it down on paper, and you can't write it in one thought. You have to write it in details, and then it takes time for people to make it. It's a process. Yes.
What do you mean it came out all at one time?
Well, what they say, I was not there.
No, I know.
That I remember, and at any rate, I may have been on it. My soul may have been there, but I don't cognitively remember what happened a few thousand years ago. And there's a tradition that the 10 matters, the 10 sayings that were spoken at Mount Sinai were all spoken in one moment, in time. You had, let's say, 100 words said in the same, not in a sentence structured, you could hear each word of the sentence, but all as in one word, which you cannot compute all that. Okay? So I don't know, I don't remember hearing it. This is a tradition, and if it happened, it happened. If it didn't happen, it doesn't make a difference to me. It's just a concept of the idea of in thought, everything can happen at the same moment, but in reality that we live in, it can't. That's all. Just different reality.
Thank you.
The words Erev and Boker are also added here in this verse. Erev is evening, or we put it as gloom. It has other meanings which we'll bring out. And Boker, morning, we called it glow. It also has other meanings. And so this creates further distinction, which define and clarify itself within the primary separation in creation. But even though they're defined and they're given definitions, they still continue to exist as one at this point in time, at this space in creation. So let me just briefly go over the verse again, just add something to each word, each translation. Vayikra, and it is drawn forth by the details that are caused by the power of boundaries. Each element and division in creation is being given definition in order to be an individual and unique boundary. So normally boundaries are created to separate. Here, the boundaries are not here to separate. The boundaries are here to give everything its unique place. Just because you're unique doesn't mean you have to be separate from everyone. It's a matter of finding, you have to be unique, the other person has to be unique, and you have to find how to blend. That can be a challenge. And some people you can do with and some not. But it's about blending, not about just staying in your own space. So the boundaries are here not so much to separate, but to give you a unique place through pure clarity. That pure clarity holds within it the potential of illumination, which is often sparked by the presence of clarity or shine. The pure clarity, if you have a pure heart, you have everything exists in there. The difficulty is that we live in a world where living in a pure state means you're going to get hurt all the time in different ways. So you have different walls that are there. But the pure clarity itself, it's still there within you. And at times it can shine forth. It's ready to live. People are ready to live in their purity if the world and people would let them. It's just not ready for it yet. But at this point in creation, it exists. That's what exists, is that pure clarity. And through thick haze, it's drawn forth through the pure clarity and through thick haze, the pre-existing condition that holds the potential associated often the precipitation of dullness, that which may ultimately be subject or need to be subject to transformation or change. And thus is the power of gloom, exposed and always available, or the essence of the driving force. Of glow is exposed and always available, illuminating as an expression of oneness. Oneness exists with no physical concept of separation, because it's all one entity at this point, and all's happening in thought, and therefore there's no need for physical definition to allow it to continue. So the definitions we have here are really definitions of thought and soul. They're not actually physical. The physical only actually happens later. So I'll give you a further thought in the sentence, and then we'll go to explaining differences in the actual words themselves. Although there are boundaries, there's a power of boundaries which creates more definition, it still remains an infinite, even with these boundaries. When we attempt to comprehend an experience or something that exists, we formulate reasons for the existence. We don't know why, we just create. For some reason we have to know, so we create what we want to know. Whether it's true or not is another question. It's not always based on fact. And if you look around at society, people like to make judgments and like to decide if things are right or wrong without knowing the facts or without knowing what's happening. They just decide in their own mind. So people like to do that for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it probably serves those who like to lie and control others, because then they can manipulate people if people think that way and believe that way. But at any rate, when we attempt to comprehend something, so we formulate reasons for it. There are attempts to explain a core for the existence that we are not responsible. We didn't create the world, we didn't create mankind, we didn't create animals, we didn't create anything. And yet we try to find a reason for it, even though we're not responsible for its creation. So it's very interesting that people have decided or think they know why the world's created, why things are here, and they don't really know. It's reasons they've made up. They didn't initiate it. They're just looking and deciding why, based on what they see, but they don't know any more than that, because they didn't initiate the creation. When we create something, we normally know why we're doing it. We're doing it to help people, we're doing it to help society. But why the world was created, none of us can comprehend. Why animals were created, why humans were created, we can't comprehend. I don't. You can give me all the reasons that I've heard and all the reasons of people, none of it makes any sense to me. You want to say something?
Yeah, how do you know that?
How do I know that I don't understand?
No, that I wanted to say something. Okay, anyway.
I don't know, it just looked like
anyway,
it.
Maybe it's just to keep the force entertained.
Keep the force entertained.
You know, I mean, just to be out there, you know, formless forever, you know, out of boredom.
So, have you seen a movie where the
No,
force
it's
was
just the
bored
force.
and wanted to be entertained?
No, I mean, you know, the Creator built us, built it, created us, created the earth, but the thing is, he's constantly creating, right?
Yes, everything is
So-
consecrated, but none of it doesn't make sense. Why a being that has no definition, no beginning, no end, no definition, has any need to create anything?
Yeah, how would he know what he was missing?
Right? Doesn't know what he's missing, so he wouldn't create it. Okay. So then you could say it just happened on its own. Because the Creator has the ability to do everything, everything happens on its own.
Could I go off the subject for a second? It's not off the subject, it's just, did you ever see the photographs from the Hubble telescope?
Yeah.
And all those clouds that are a million light years away?
Okay.
Is that's him creating also because?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
This
Absolutely.
is-
Thus, attempts that we have to use words or explain or define are actually an indication of our limitation. It shows you how much we have thought, how much we understand, but it also tells you our limitation of how much we understand. So it's very interesting that people think they're clever in giving reasons, but what they don't see is they don't see from when you're standing back, you can see the limitations of the explanation that the person is giving, even though they don't see it themselves. So sometimes being clever is not too clever. Anyway, so despite our attempts to try and comprehend everything, there's always something that we cannot define or describe. There's always a question, there's something there that is beyond our grasp and reach or comprehension. When a person's heart is truly open, then the person can understand things that don't have any description, that we have no description for. People that have an open heart, a truly open heart, are those that can truly accept things the way it is. This is the way it is, that's it, and that's fine, and move on. It takes a truly open heart. And maybe that's one of the reasons or one of the things that we need to learn about loving another person, is to let the other person be, not to control them. Controlling someone is not loving them. Loving another person with an open heart means accepting everything the way they are, not wanting to change them, not trying to change them, just letting it be. And you don't have to comprehend why you love someone. You just love them. It never has to make sense. Making sense is the worst thing, because then it limits it. But there are certain things you can only achieve and do when you have that pure love, that open heart, that flow. It goes far beyond anything the mind can do or that the emotions can do. And so if we want to connect with the essence of creation, it's just saying this is the way the Creator wanted it, that's the way it is. It's not about good or bad, right or wrong. Accepting that's the way it is, let's see what's the best thing we can do, how we can help it, and how we can do the best we can do. That's all. That way you're not judging anyone or anything. You're just trying to be the best person you can be. And that's all that can be asked of any person, is to be the best that they can be. That in itself is a challenge, constant challenge. Many times a person has the desire to remember things from when they were younger, from their childhood, and relive them. They remember, I was so simple, so pure, I really enjoyed things. Now I'm older, my mind is convoluted, my life is different. How do I get that purity back that I had when I was a child? And adults often think they've lost that purity. They don't have it anymore. It's buried. They don't know that it even exists. The truth is they didn't lose anything. It's just buried. You had an experience. The experience is in you. The fact that you don't experience it the same way now doesn't mean it's not there. It's somewhere in your cell memory. And it's just concealed. But the things that pile up on us are the things that make up who we appear to be nowadays. But that doesn't mean at some point we cannot go back, clear it up and go back to reconnect with some of those aspect of an open heart and pureness that we had. It's just that now that we're older, when we do it, we know that we have to have a balance with other people or the world we live in. When we were a child, we didn't understand that. The purity was the whole world. But when we got hurt, and we covered it up. Now going back to it, we should have the idea of an adult is that now you have experience to know that you have to be more careful in opening it up and expressing it, where and how. So when you focus on that purity that you remember from some point in your life, you can bring it up, you can rekindle it. And when you do that, it brings the past, that childhood memory or that memory when you were younger, into the present. So the past and present now become one. And when you do that, you transcend time and space. And you also bring yourself together. There are many people nowadays who embark on journeys of self-discovery. The more that is discovered along the way, the greater opportunities for enlightenment. Each discovery is often responsible, hopefully, for removing some part of the blockage that prevents us from being open to the truth. Despite our best efforts, we know that our enlightenment that we have individually isn't even a dot on the chart of the whole existence, not just of all existence. When you look at how small the earth is in the universe and how small the earth is in comparison, or this universe, to all the other universes, and you look at a human being, so our comprehension is not even a dot on the chart when it comes to understanding the universe and the Creator. Yet, each person is the center of the earth and the center of the universe. Because the way you perceive the earth is the way the earth is to you. Everyone's perception puts them at the center of whatever they're looking at. So, from your perspective, where you're looking, you're the center of the earth, the center of the universe. Where I'm looking from, this is the center of the earth and universe. Every person is a center, even though, in a certain sense, that center is a dot and almost irrelevant. Almost. Not totally. The fact that we're part of the universe means we're not irrelevant. And the more we learn, the more we know how little we actually know. However, it's also true that our openness and willing to understand opens pathways for us, as it signals our desire to connect with the Creator. And that's what people need, is a desire. Sometimes people say, how can I change other people? How can I make them hear? You can't. If they don't want to know, they don't want to hear, you cannot change them. Don't even bother wasting your energy on it. Don't try telling them anything. That's why preachers are chemically imbalanced. The fact that they can think that they can tell people what to do and change them means they've got a problem. They're just putting it on other people. That's why they're preachers. Because they're blocked from that. But a person who's open, understands, knows that the only way you can help anyone is changing yourself. Become a self-example of what you think the person should be. When you live by example, that's the best way for other people to learn and to grow. And our desire to want to improve and grow is what other people pick up as well. And a desire to want to connect with the Creator also is important. A lot of people get stuck in the desire to connect with the Creator and God. They connect with the religion, they connect with the church, with a synagogue, with whatever they're connecting, and they feel they've got a connection. That's not the connection. The connection is not a building. The connection is not a person. The connection is in the heart. And if your heart is not connected, the building won't connect you. If your heart is connected, you can go in the building, it's going to be connected there too. It's finding that connection, wanting it within, not being satisfied with getting an answer from outside. The answer has to be within. Once that message is conveyed, we're on our way to the next level of life, whatever that is. We no longer have that need to know all things that elude us. It simply is sufficient to be in ourselves and trust the space that will allow us to achieve a seamless connection with Creator and creation. So that's a thought within verse 5. A little bit of understanding it as before we go into the words. Any questions before I go back to the words? Yes. Just raise hand. Okay. The first word we translated Vayikra, and it's drawn forth. Page 7, verse 5. It's on page 7. And is drawn forth. It's read Vayikra. Vayikra, Kara, is an expression of invitation, of drawing forth. It's designated from above and beyond, and so it's called forth. This is in Sefer HaPliyot. All calling forth, Vayikra, in creation is conditional, according to the Medrash Tanchuma. The letter Vav, the first two letters on it, Vav and Yud, signify that it's a calling of love. It's mentioned in Sefer HaPliyot. Vayikra is normally translated call. In Exodus 10, chapter 10, verse 16, the word call means an invitation, as it says, and Pharaoh hurried to summon or invite Moses. The words used in Korah. It also means designate, and that's how it's used in Isaiah chapter 49, first verse, that Hashem designated me from the belly, and in Talmud Pesachim 2b as well. The word Vayikra can also mean receiving, as it is interpreted in Isaiah 6:3 by Yonasan ben Azil. So it does have different meanings. There are further meanings Korah may have, but these are the general meanings of Korah. The next word is Elokim, God. We've translated power of boundaries. Sefer HaPliyot says this is the sixth pathway. So it may be the fifth verse, but the Torah is not divided into verses actually, or sentences. It has no punctuation. And we've said that there are 32, thank you, we've said that the 32 times the name Elohim is used in the first chapter of Genesis, and that there are 32 pathways within the creation. And we've described some, we'll describe further. This is the sixth one. Through. We've translated the letter Lamed as through. The letter Lamed also means close to, as it says in Shir Shirim, Song of Songs, chapter 2:6. His left hand under or next to my head. Smolei tachas l'reishi. Use the Lamed to mean under or next to. Actually, next to. This indicates that something is placed in close juxtaposition to something else. The formulation of the letter Lamed, which I have here, I will just show you. This is the letter Lamed. So you see it has a line that goes up, a line straight in the middle, and a line that comes under. Okay. Now, that the line which is on top is a line that is above the letter, the normal height of the other letters. It reaches above, and then it comes down to the level which the other letters are at, the line, and then it comes down again. So it comes from the right side, it comes from the top, then from the left side it goes down. So it's not just something that says to, that you go to, it's just a path or trail through which something is directed. So it connects the left and the right. it connects two places, one above and one below. At other points, we'll point out what the lamed means in different ways. But here is just now, just that the shape of the letter, how it's formed. The shape of the letters are important because it teaches us about the flow of energy, how they are. It's taken from one space, connects with where everything is, and brings it down. It also means to or about, as in Numbers chapter 23, it said, to Yaakov, because Kuni says the Lamed makes it translate, it's about Yaakov. Thus we understand that there's a variety of correct meanings that are utilized in interpretation that fit the action of whatever is occurring. So in many places, people try to say, okay, which is the best translation or meaning of the word to be used in this verse? And there are at times differences depending on people's perspectives of it. Pure clarity, the R is pure clarity. And we're still calling it pure clarity. Later on it will just be clarity, but in the first verses here it's still pure clarity. Sefer HaPliya writes that this pure clarity is a base for the world. So although we've gone off in different tangents, different directions, the pureness is still that base. And that's what we want to get to, back to eventually. Illumination. Or, which is translated as light, we translate as illumination. Day, which is Yom, we translate as illumination. Sefer HaPliya says that this is not the light of day, this is beyond the light of day. The word also means to ascend, or a time of alertness. According to Reb Shimshon Lefar Hirsch, the word is related to other Hebrew words that have two or three of these letters in them. And some of those words are the word that means rise, or establish, or to be clear. And through the thick haze, the choshech, is deeper and harsher than the darkness, according to Sefer HaPliya. Associated, that's based in Sefer HaPliya. Sefer HaPliya, by the way, we mentioned in the first class, is a book that goes back to 850 or 1200 years ago, very accepted, mainly a Kabbalistic book, but accepted by all rabbis throughout the world as a book that teaches us what Torah means. Associated, that is Kara, which can also be called. It also means to happen or to occur, as in Genesis 49:1, where Jacob says, gather and I will tell you what will happen or occur at the end of days. It uses the word kara. So there it doesn't mean call, it means happen or occur. So the word kara here also is something occurring. It's making a connection with something. Dullness, it's a mixture of clarity and brightness. So it's dull. It's got something, but not too much of something. There are two letters, lamed, in this word, Lila. Okay. So let me show you these two letters. So here you have, over here, Lila. You have two lameds, a yud and a hey, which we'll discuss at some point. But if you just take the two lameds themselves, without the yud and hey, it's lul. Lul means blending together. Lulaot is loops or knots that hold something together. So lulaim, it would be a spiritual a spiral staircase. Lulim. There's more, each of these words we can discuss probably more next week. More details of the words, yes.
I find it very interesting that light, or as it's looked on this brightness and dullness, come before the creation of the sun.
Correct.
And this sort of implies, and you bring in the connection between modern science and Torah, the Big Bang, the radiation, the energy was here long before the sun. And
Absolutely.
this is actually, they just say, well, how can there be light before the sun? But the way it's explained now, as a haze, it fits.
Absolutely.
The way it fits together.
That is correct. It shows the energy and the rays and everything was here long before the sun. That's correct.
The word energy, I think, is another word that may fit in here.
Yes, you could use the word energy here as well. But I don't want to keep using it because I'll overuse it because energy is also a general term.
Yeah.
So it, but yes, that is correct. Vayihi, and thus is the power of. The word Vayihi, the Hebrew word, has 4 letters, Vav, Yud, He, and Yud, and the numerical value of the word together, Vav is 6, Yud is 10, He is 5, and Yud is 10, is 31, which is the same numerical value as the word El. El means power. Elokim, El is also translated God. At the end of every many angels, you have the word El. El has a numerical value in Hebrew is 31, which is the same as the word Vayihi here. It's mentioned in Sefer Plio. Erev, translated as gloom. It's comprised, the letters of the word Erev also have different meanings if you change the words around, but also has Ba'ar. Ba'ar means ignorant or foolish. Vayihi, and thus is the power. They're both constant, the gloom and the glow. Glow, Boker. Boker is comprised of the exact same letters as the word Barak. Barak means lightning, a flash of lightning. Sefer Plio mentions that. Illuminating, Yom. The Ramban writes that any expression of action is called Yom. So what people call Yom day, he says Yom just means any expression of action. And we have illuminating. The 3 letters of the word Yom move in the following manner. You're going to have this word here. You have a Yud, a Vav, and a Mem. So the Yud is a dot, the Vav is a dot with a line coming down, and the Mem is a square, a closed square. Okay? That's what the word day is. Now what that actually means is that dot refers to the Creator. And the Vav, the letter coming down, refers to the Creator energy coming down into a square, into a description, into a defined space. So on one hand, it's being limited by the defined space. On the other hand, the Creator is being revealed in that space. So the world is a defined space, and the Creator is concealed in everything. But at the same time, the whole world is an expression of the Creator. It's a revelation. So the word Yom doesn't mean day, as people always translate it as day. What it means is a level of expression of the Creator within a defined space, or whatever term it is. And so I didn't know how to translate it exactly. I called it illuminating because if you see that the Creator is in that space, then it enables you to relate to the Creator. Beforehand, the Creator is beyond definition. Now that there's definition, it's illuminating to you because you have a relationship to the Creator. But if you have a different word or translation, let me know, and I definitely, I don't know. I'm just using this word because that's how I'm explaining it, but it could be a different word. So the word Yom harnesses the energy of the Creator in order to give us life and illuminate for us in whatever way it is. One, not as in first, number one, but at one as in a wholeness. Moshe Chochmah says that. Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to just give a few other possible ways of translating the sentence, this verse, just to show. I'm not going to go into those details here. As we explain next week and the week after, we'll bring out some of those details, but just to show you that they actually have different meanings, I'm going to show you some other ways to translate the verse. Another way of translating verse 5 is, and is designated by a power of judgment for illumination, alertness, and for opaqueness, designated a mixture of everything, and with this is mixture, and with this is examination, establishing oneness. It's a whole different philosophy behind understanding of each word. Another way is causing direction to be changed by an element of control. With clarity is brought about ascension, and for obscurity is associated conditional expression, bringing forth to be pleasant and bringing forth to be examined, both emanations of singular sharpness. These are just ways, each word can be understood in different ways, but it's a different philosophical perspective, a different understanding of the words on all different levels. So it's not like when we learn in Cheder, we go to school, we learn one translation. That is a very limited perspective. If you start learning the words, each word has meanings on different levels. And it's only when you start going through the different meanings that you start saying, wait, what's going on here? It's not the way I'm being taught, it's something different. And then it's very difficult to go into a whole long study of it.
I was speaking about words and having different meanings. I didn't want to say it before, but since you brought it up, the word erev used here is gloom, or is evening.
Correct.
In terms of the Hebrew word, the ayin resh vav, since there is no vowels, isn't this the same word as an erev, as a shelter in terms of?
Yes, and the same word erev, which is even gloom, can be arev, can be sweet. It can be you're an arev, that you're you take a responsibility for someone. It can be an eruv, something that brings things together. It ties things together. Arev is wild animals. You could actually, another way you can read it, because no vowels, Arev, Bakar, Yemechad, that there were Arev, there were a lot of wild animals, Bakar, a lot of cattle on one day. So, you can read it.
The cattle weren't created yet.
No, it doesn't matter. I'm saying if you're reading, because there's no vowels, you can read it anyway.
Right.
It obviously doesn't mean that, but it can be read that way. Because Hebrew doesn't have vowels as letters, all different combinations can be brought in. And that's why it takes a lot of study to figure out what is appropriate to put in and what not. And I've always found that as interesting. What we'll do next week is we're going to go into the words. All these words have a lot more meaning. So next week we'll go more into those different meanings to expand it into a different way. Yes? No? Okay.
I should point out to people, so I just realized
Yes.
that since this is the actual words of Torah, and you're not using Elohim, that this is actually holy material. This is something not to throw out.
Okay, the pages I've given out have the name as they're printed in Torah, God's name, so please don't throw it out. Treat it as such. I'm sure people will hold on to it if they want to study anyway.
It's the actual Hebrew text. That's my way to believe it.
Or you can leave it here and pick it up next week.
It seems to me that clarity and illumination.
Clarity and illumination have similarities, yes. See, but it's how you understand the words, and on what type of clarity. Is it a limited clarity? Is it a very expansive clarity? Same thing, illumination. Is it a limited illumination? And in what way? How much is illuminated? So we're using terms but they can have different meanings depending on how you understand the words and what's going on in the verse or in creation. And so really what you have here is long before this world was created or the universe was created, all the forces and energies were there. They weren't there in the physical sense that we know them, but they existed. It says even the Torah, which Moses wrote, existed beforehand on an energy level. This is what it says. He took that energy, that spiritual energy, and connected it with the words that he wrote. So it's not about the words he wrote, it's the energy behind the words. So essentially when you understand the Torah this way, the whole first chapter really is about that before this world was created, there existed an infinite amount of energy and realms and things that are beyond our imagination. All these things existed, and at the end of all that, a small part of that life force or energy created this world. It's very minute in comparison to all the universal energy that existed, and very small, and that's why people have a difficulty comprehending it, because people think they're the center of everything and don't realize they're not. They're just a result of everything, not the center of it. Okay. Thank you very much.